Hello everyone. So today in your sketchbooks we're going to be doing 1-point perspective. So that's the title for you, and then as usual you want the date. If you want to, you can put your sketchbooks over to the side and turn them so that the wire is up so it won't get in the way for when we use the straight edge. So for this we're going to want super straight lines and pretty sharp ones. So make sure that you're using a good sharp pencil. Your HB or 2B are probably your best ones. And then you're going to want, like I said, a straight edge of some kind. So a ruler works perfectly. You can also fold a piece of paper and have anything, again, that has a straight edge is going to work for us. So please label this 1-point perspective, put the date on there. You want to put like your initials on as well, just to keep things nice and organized. And so on here we're going to do a combination of a diagram that goes over how to do this and then some notes. That includes vocabulary and the how to do this instructions. So the very first thing that we want to establish is right across the middle of our paper, we want to draw a straight line. So just a straight line that goes through the paper. Use your ruler for this. Alright, so that line that you're making is called a horizon line. And on it, in the middle, you're going to create what we call a vanishing point. So right there, in the middle of this, I'm going to do this little dot, and I'm going to label it with the letters VP for vanishing point. And that line that we made is called a horizon line. So let's write the vocabulary terms down, as well as their definitions. So first of all, you have your horizon line. So if you think like the sun sets on the horizon, this is a horizontal line where the sky meets the ground. So if you think about like the sun setting, if you look out into the ocean, you can see the sun set on the horizon. It also rises on that. So it's really where like you're unable to see further. Now, we drew a little point on there in the middle, and that's called a vanishing point. And so your vanishing point is the point where your perspective lines are going to meet or disappear. It's literally the point for your eyes that is as far as it can go. So everything starts to disappear here. So if you imagine like a car is driving in the distance, and it's even if it's in a straight line, like as soon as it gets like too far away, you wouldn't really be able to see it, and that's because the world is kind of curving. So even though it's continuing, it's not falling off. That's where things kind of vanish for you. You're unable to see them anymore. So those are our definitions. Horizon line is where the sky meets the ground, and vanishing point is the point where perspective lines are going to meet or disappear. Having that vanishing point and establishing it is going to be really important for the steps that we're going to do. So the first step for doing this, and I'm going to change colors. Today, if you want to use like colored pencils or crayons or markers or something to help you, then you can absolutely use them when we're diagramming this. We're going to end up with a lot of lines here, so totally feel free to do that. First thing I want to do is draw a box. So we're going to be dealing with boxes because they have corners, and when they turn, unlike a sphere, which is the same no matter how you turn it, or the bottles, which no matter how you turn it still look like a cylinder, boxes are going to be different. So we're going to make a bunch of cubes today. So somewhere on here you want to make a shape, and I'm going to do this with my ruler just to make sure that it's really solid and looks really nice. So I'm going to do a square. You don't have to be that specific with how you measure. If you are using a ruler, like an inch big of a square should be fine. And I'm going to put that in the top left corner, just for now to make it easy for me. That's going to go to the top left corner. So you make a shape, preferably one with corners. So cubes are going to be the easiest for us to deal with today. Now, what you're going to do is take the corners and you're going to draw lines from those corners to the vanishing point. So this corner here, I'm going to bring it to the vanishing point. Again, I'm using my ruler, so I make a little point right there just to help me line things up. Use my ruler to bring that to the vanishing point, and then that one right there as well. Now, there's a special rule with this one. We have one more corner right here, but if my line would go into my shape, that means that it's being blocked off. I wouldn't really be able to see it unless it was glass. So I'm not going to do that corner right there. We have to stop when it hits the shape, or if it would run into the shape, we have to stop. So I'm not going to do that corner, but the other ones are fine. So this is going to be the front, and then I'm going to have the right side, and then I'm going to have the bottom. So on the right side, we have like these sections. So I have this section right here, and then I have this section at the bottom. So that's going to end up being the right side and bottom of our box. You want to create parallel lines. So this line is going up and down in this section. So in this section, I'm going to make some parallel lines. I'm going to decide to take it about here. There's definitely a way to measure how far to make it if you want to be a perfect cube, but we don't really need to deal with that. So right here, I'm going to make a parallel line. It's going to go up and down because that section is going up and down. Now at the bottom, that section goes side to side horizontally. So right at that corner there, I'm going to also make a line that goes horizontally, and it's going to be parallel. So often when people do this, they accidentally go like this, or they'll make it really short like that, but it has to be going the exact same direction as this. I find what helps me when I'm sketching or when I'm drawing is if I just draw a bunch of lines like this, then eventually they end up looking parallel anyways. So if that helps you, is making all those lines until you feel the need to stop, then that's fine. It's important that they do meet at that corner though. And now you basically have a box. I'm going to darken my lines now, and hopefully this will make it make more sense to you. So I'm going to go over this and just get the actual lines that I want. So here, that initial square that we have, I'm also going to shade it. So I'm going to start by outlining. Again, you can do this with different colors if you want to. I don't really suggest you take your Sharpie marker to it. There's not really a need to, but you can draw your lines a little bit harder so they look different than your guidelines. And then I'll color it. So you can decide to pick on a light source, that's fine, but it doesn't matter that much. So I like to do a light side, a medium side, and a dark side. So there's my light. A medium, and dark. So take your time with your pencil to shade that kind of nicely, and there you go, all done. I'm going to make a box on the bottom right now. So first thing that we did was we started with that square. So same size, just make sure it's at the bottom right, a little bit further away, so kind of at the corner. It'll literally just be the opposite of the first one. So now that you have your shape, we're going to do the same thing. Right into that vanishing point there. So use your ruler for that. And again, I can't do this corner because it would go into my shape, so I have to stop, or I have to just ignore it for now. Then we add in our parallel lines for the sides. So over here, our lines go side to side. There you go. In this section, they go up and down, so up and down, and make sure that they meet at the corner right there. So all of these are really like 90 degrees. We're not making any slanted lines at all, except for when we bring them to the vanishing point. But all the lines that you draw on your own are just going to go either horizontally or vertically. None of them should be slanting in weird directions, out or in. Really easy process. Again, just to make this a little bit neater, we're going to go back and go over the actual outlines and shade it. So it's a super simple process once you get used to it. And again, this really only works for objects that, one, have corners to them and that are facing you. So different things will happen depending on how the box is turned. Again, I'm going to go in and shade. Just pick a light, a dark, and a medium. They don't all have to make sense. It doesn't honestly matter that much. Okay, and a dark one. So now you have two nice cubes. Looking good. So now we know what it's like when an object is either above you or if it's below you. If it's above you, you see the bottom, so the opposite is if it's below you, you would see the top of it. So put an object lower than you, you'll see the top of it. Now, it can so happen that you would only see the side of something. If it's next to you, then you can't see the top or the bottom, you would just see the sides. So let's look at how that would turn out. So over here, again, I can switch colors. So now let's say that we have our shape is going to be on the actual horizon line. So not technically above or below you, at least not fully, but it's literally next to your eye. So for this, once you make your shape, you're going to go in, bring that corner to the vanishing point. This corner here, it would go into my shape, so I can't do that one. The bottom here I can bring in like that. Oops, let me clean that up a little. And this corner would also go in it, so I'm not going to do that corner either. So this is actually a lot simpler. We only have one section here. I can't see the top or the bottom, it's just the side right here. So in here, the line is going up and down. We also want to just decide where we want that to end. And that's literally it. There's nothing else to do here except to clean it up and make it look really nice. So go in. Go over your lines again. And even though it's blocking the horizon line a little bit, you don't have to worry about erasing it. Just shade on top of it so I can tell what your box would look like. Probably want to pick a light and just a medium this time since there's only two different sides. Or a light and a dark. Again, as long as you just differentiate, it should be fine. And that's how you do 1-point perspective. It is pretty simple. Okay, so now that we have our 3 boxes that are kind of very simple objects, we're going to make things more complicated. And to do that, we're going to make a more complex shape. So I'm going to switch colors again. And instead of just drawing like a simple rectangle or simple square, I'm going to create a new shape. So I'm going to draw the letter T, kind of boxy. So to start out with, I make a rectangle and I overlap another rectangle with it. Kind of looks like I'm playing Tetris here. Now the reason that I overlap the two rectangles is when people try to freehand the T, sometimes things get curvy, or sometimes they don't meet up the same, or they look like one side is thinner than the other. So it looks really weird. So that's why I do those two rectangles to help me really make this nice and neat. Once I have them, I can kind of neaten that up a little bit to make it look more accurate. So now we have a more complex object with way more corners. So before we were only dealing with 4 corners. This time I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I still want to take them to the vanishing point. So nothing has changed. So to get perspective right on the first one, I'm just going to bring it straight down. Next one. Next one. So the first couple are going to be really easy, super straightforward. I don't know why, but when we get to the left side, to the right side, things kind of get confusing for people. So this corner right here would go into my shape, and when it goes into shapes, you have to stop. So I'm not going to do that one. This corner right here is probably the most confusing. So if I take this and go all the way to my vanishing point, it would cross into my shape. But I don't just not draw it, I have to just stop. So I'll stop when it hits the shape, and that's what I do. I don't skip it just because it would hit the shape. I just stop when it does, because it should still have its own perspective lines to it. So we are going to do that one. It's just going to look a lot shorter. So this one happens. This corner would just go straight in there, so I'm not going to do that one. And then this one, just a straight easy shot down into my vanishing point. So there you go. All of the lines are brought to their perspective, or to the vanishing points. And we're ready to do the sides now. So sides work the same. If I get up close, you see this one goes up and down. So I'm going to make a line that goes up and down. That determines the width of everything. So now that I have that one, I can do this line that goes horizontally across. And if you imagine, this was supposed to be like one rectangle, right? So I'm going to go and cross into the other side as well, because these would technically be the same width. If you want to, I guess you can skip that part. I'll just have to say it again later. So if you did it already, great. If you didn't, then I'll show you how to do it again. So up and down, side to side. This one goes up and down, just meets at the corners. Corner here, this one goes side to side. All your lines literally are just 90 degrees, so they should either go straight vertically or straight horizontally. All right, this section, again, it confuses people. You see that from here to here, it goes straight like that. And you want it to match along with the other side. So that's where it ends. So there you go. There's a more complicated shape with different parts. You can make a bunch of different shapes if you want to, but the important thing is that this is a very squared off, very cornery shape. Things like O's and like the letter D that have curves in it, or the letter B has like holes in it. Those are more complicated, but simple ones that you kind of make out of blocks are going to be easy. So now I can go back in, go outline, and shade. So make sure you get all of the little corners. And then even though this has way more sides than the other one did, it's still going to be fairly easy. So it's either something is on the left, I see the bottom, or I see the front of it. So if that helps you, then that's fine. But it's like there's only 3 sides, so it shouldn't be that complicated to color it in. So first let's start with anything that's on the left. We're going to color kind of lightly So that's on the left and that's on the left. Then we have the things that are at the bottom, so I'm going to color those a little bit darker. So that's a bottom part. That's something I would see. That's something I would see if I looked up. And finally, there's the face, which is the easiest. So the face is just that flat thing. Nothing else is facing the same way as the face. Or the front, I guess you could call it. So our Teen Titans Tower is finished out. Alright, so now that we have 4 complicated kind of floating shapes, none of these are really interacting, so I'm going to show you how to make objects that look more interactive. So for this, I'm going to go and work off of my first cube. I'm going to show you how to make things look like a stack, so like something is below or above your like objects. So I want basically the same object again, but just below this. So I'm going to make this square and I'm going to move it down a little bit lower. So I'm going to line up my sides. So I just take those sides, kind of extend them down. And I'm going to draw a square that's a little bit lower. Alright, and now I know that the width of it is the same. I gave it like a kind of different height, so I can fix that if I want to. There you go. Okay, so having the same width, you can kind of ignore everything else and just treat this the same for now. Again, we want to take our corners all the way to the vanishing points. Make that a little thinner. And that top left corner I'm not going to do because it would get blocked off. Alright, then I also want this to be the same width this way, so I'll also line up that, and that's where the side is going to be. So there, and then I just take that corner and make sure I have a horizontal line parallel to this one. So go back and forth, and there we go. So that's really easy. If you raise this up slightly, then it would kind of block the red, so I just made it a little bit lower, but I'll show you what it looks like, if you do this slightly differently. First, let's go treat it like normal, so we're going to outline this. And then we're going to color it. Again, we want a front, the bottom, and the side. And I can clean that up. Okay. So if I drew this box a little too high, notice that it would block off the box that's above it. And that's because it's technically closer to us. It's lower down, it's closer to our eyes, it's closer to the horizon line. So if you drew it just like right below there instead of giving it space, it would block off the very bottom part of the above square. And again, that's because it's closer to the horizon line, therefore it's closer to us. But I'm just going to put that back now. Okay, so now we have that block that's right below it. So complicated. Last thing I want to do is show you how to stack something that's like behind. So instead of above or below, we're going to stack something like literally going further away in space. So over here, we're going to deal with that blue box that I made, so the bottom right box. Again, switch colors for us. So right now I have a box here. I'm going to try to put one behind it and show you how to stack like that. So if you imagine our first box looks like this, just a square, and then we have these sides here. So in order to do this, I'm going to make more parallel lines. So this was kind of like the top, this was the left side, and this was the front. So I'm going to make a new top, a new left side, and then I need to also do the front. So the front of it is going to be here. So same as this line. It's going to go straight. It's kind of like I'm making another box like that. So this is going to go down there. So I have the left side, the top, and the front. So I'm going to get rid of anything that it would block. I'll just keep those labels there to make things easier for us to understand. And then I will trace over this and color it again. And really adding the shading helps so much so that you can differentiate. So we start with the left side, we made light, so we're going to copy the same shading that is happening right in front of it. We have kind of a medium for the top. And then finally, the front face is what we made the darkest. So just copying that. There's the front face. So now it looks like there's a box behind it. You can go on and on and on forever. You can just keep making those boxes, just keep stacking them. Those are probably the easiest for me to do anyways. So as long as you have like a front and then the top and the left side, then you're always going to be making these. They can even be touching each other, so it can just be a bunch of blocks all together lined up. Doesn't really matter. So there you go. Wow, wasn't that intense? Yes, it was. All right, so you need to know how to do this in case I ask you for the directions. Ideally, that's something that you would know. So let's start out with the first thing. And the first thing we did was we drew a horizon line. And we drew that in the middle of the page. It really just depends, but for us, the horizon line for the diagram was just in the middle. That's pretty easy. After we did that, we added one vanishing point on the horizon line. And that was the setup. So next, to draw an actual object, we start by drawing a shape. So a singular shape just kind of facing us. For us, that was the square, the letter T, whatever it is. Then you draw lines from the corners to the vanishing point. Now the special rule with that is that you have to stop if it hits the shape. And again, the key word there is stop, not skip, but stop if it hits the shape. And you saw that when we got to that T where we stopped the line, but we didn't just not draw it. It's also there. Next, to add the sides, you have to close the sections with parallel lines. And then optionally really is to clean up and shade. I'm almost always going to ask you to shade just so I can see the perspective a little bit better. I can differentiate between the sides and all of your guidelines. All right, I want to bring your attention to the fact that you can see the bottom of objects that are above you. And So if an object is above the horizon line, it's technically above your eyes. You would see the bottom of it. Now the opposite is true. So you would see the top of objects that are below the horizon line. So if they're below you, you see the top of them. Now, if an object is next to you, then you'll be able to only see the side of it. So be careful with that. Now, there are circumstances where an object will literally be on the vanishing point and you won't be able to see any other sides but the front of it. So you can't see the back, you can't see the top, bottom, sides, all of that. As soon as you move it over though, then you'll be able to see the side of it a little bit. So you can treat it like we normally do, even if it's really close. So pay attention to where things are and how they relate to both the horizon line and the vanishing point, and that'll help you the most with making sure your perspective is on point, 1 point at least.